Well, I left in the 70s.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I told you how difficult it was for me to get a passport.
Yes, you did.
On that
Yes, you did. And
so,
because of your police record.
That's it. That I didn't have. But we weren't involved that much in politics, except that my parents refused to allow me as a child, to join up with certain things which they found unacceptable. For example, there was a group called the Eon Group, and because I wanted to do ballet and stuff like that, and they ran a ballet school. My mother refused to send me there because they got money from the government, from the Apartheid government. I did ballet because we lived opposite a social little area where there were women from England who ran this. It was called an institute. It was called the Marion Institute. And they had a nursery school, they had a sewing group, and they had a clinic, all sorts of things and they had a boys' club. It was for the people it was District 6. This was right in District 6, and it was only coloured people who could live in District 6. But there used to be some African people that lived sprinkled around.
Yeah. So did you mix with them?
Not so many Africans, but it was a real mixed bag of people in this district. Because I remember when the Eastern Boulevard came in, they demolished a lot of the houses there so they could build this road right down to the foreshore. So they also declared District 6 a white area in the 50s, which meant that people had to move out of the district because it was white. They demolished a lot of the houses that my sister's friend lived in, and because her parents people just refused to move. They demolished the house on either side of their house that they could actually see the stars at night, because, these houses. And but they didn't touch our 3 houses because our 3 houses were on church property.
Oh, wow, that was lucky.
Very lucky. So we stayed there until we moved out because it was a 1-bedroom house. We used to we had one of those sofa couches, that old-fashioned, very old-fashioned, but very firm, that we used to pull out, and my sister and I used to sleep on that sofa bed. But then when we moved out and went to live in a coloured area in Crawford, Athlone area around
That's
the
different from District 6.
Very different from District 6. But many people who moved out of the district, they just died. The old people, they just couldn't. They were My mother was born in that same house that we lived in. That same house.
Does District 6 still exist?
Oh yes, now what they've done.
So a South African person would know when you said District 6
absolutely what that, especially the ones who live in the Cape. What they've done, they demolished the houses. There were certain churches and mosques that they didn't demolish. That still exists there. I taught at a school that was sort of on the fringes of the mountain, but it was sort of District 6. A lot of the kids who came to the school came from District 6.
And that was a public school?
A public school, yes. All the schools, there were schools that were affiliated to churches, but they weren't that private. We all had to do the same coloured curriculum, if it was a coloured school. The blacks, of course, had their curriculum and so forth. And the Indians had theirs. Indian people also went to different schools. And that's why many Indians, when you had to register, Population Registration Act, when you had to register, they changed registrations and became Muslim Malay, Cape Malay, so that they did not have to live in an Indian area, because Indians were separated from the...
So did you know Indians?
Oh yes, my friend was married, her second cousin was an Indian,
But they went to different schools.
Went to different schools. But he changed and he became a Cape Malay.
And so you changed religion, and that
No. He was not a Hindu. He was a Muslim. So they became Cape Malay, and so that they didn't have to go and live in an Indian area.
So they could mix with the coloured
So
people.
they could mix with the coloured people as well.
You wonder how somebody sat and worked all this out.
Well, they did an excellent job of dividing
you.
and ruling, dividing the whole country into little blocks. And this is where Basil and I, we always used to talk about it. When we were living here, apartheid had not been dismantled yet. So we would talk, how are they going to go about dismantling it? Because the whole of South Africa is not that big, but the whole of South Africa was divided up into these areas where coloured people lived, where the blacks lived, where the whites lived, where the Indians lived, etc. The whole of the country. So how do you dismantle that? So you'll find that still there are...
Because it's embedded. From
since 1948 this has been going on.
So many people.
That's right.
What happened to the children of mixed marriages?
That's us. Coloured people.
Well, no, I'd say Indian and a South African. Were they demonised more?
No.
So
no. It was just that the whites were right at the top of the pecking order. I'm trying to work out how it worked, because I think the Indians got a little bit more money for education than the coloureds did. I think it was
So
whites.
it was better to be Indian than coloured.
Yes, but you
on
couldn't live. You had to
hierarchy.
I think so, because the Indians in Durban, this is on the east coast of South Africa, were extremely rich. They came over and worked on the sugar plantations, and so they were quite wealthy. And so I think this is why. But the Chinese were Asian, and the Japanese were white, registered as white.
That's absurd.
It's true. Because they had more money.
Japanese had more money?
Yeah. It was a lot to do with money, but Japanese were whiter looking than some Chinese were darker. And this is another thing.
So it was about skin colour.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It was definitely about skin colour, Oh, look, I can go on forever and ever with these stories.
It'll keep on surprising me.
Yeah, I know. But now we were talking about Irene.
Yeah.
So when we came over in 1971, it was because of the apartheid.
Yes.
My husband had a lot of trouble over there. I think I told you the stories when he couldn't, they put him out of the queues and all that stuff. Then I met Vernon Hoffman. Now he was also from District 6. No, hang on. Where did he live? But anyway, he went to Trafalgar High School, and he was a very clever man. He died when he was only 47 or 46. He died here in Australia. He left the country as well. And I caught up with him, and then he took my husband and myself to Irene's house, where they had this anti-apartheid movement, and that's how I got to meet Irene. And then we all became members of Say Care and Care, because they were very much involved in this. And then I sat on the committee. We were very involved in Say Care. Ran functions and fundraising, etc., etc. And then Eddie Fundi came over. And when he came over, he felt that he was put in a very difficult position, because the Care and Say Care had a very broad umbrella. They were working for Aboriginal people, African people, Asian, everybody under that umbrella. And he felt that he was sort of a guest in Australia, and he found it very difficult when Aboriginal issues came up, because he didn't feel in a position to be able to take a stand being a guest here. I grappled a lot. Basil and I both grappled with the situation. He felt that it would be better if we had just to focus on South Africa alone. His group. He was going to do that. So we had to break away from SACARE in order for him to do this. It took me very long to do this because I just felt that Irene was such a worker and she did a lot for South Africa as well. But I definitely understood, and Basil and I both understood, that it had to be done. If we wanted to get anything happening in South Africa, we had to focus totally on South Africa. And so we definitely resigned from SACARE, but I sat on the SACARE committee as a liaison. Yes, it did. Yeah. It did. So that I went to their meetings and then I brought back information to our meetings, and I took from our meetings, I took information to what we were doing to SACARE as well. But I don't think Irene was very happy about that. But I could see it was on the cards, you know. Yeah. I fully understood focus, and we had to get this thing right, you know, because it was just terrible those days. And then we still had functions. Irene was still advertised our functions in whatever material she had, you know, and so we worked together. And he formed ANC solidarity groups all around the country. There was in Perth. I think the Perth the Perth care group lasted a longer time than any of the others. Yeah. Because I can remember we had Algernon van der Hoven. He was one of...
Was in your group?
Well, he sort of headed the group.
Yeah.
He and I didn't always see eye to eye. And because I think there was this, you know, this male stuff.
Every woman does.
They felt that we were too strong, you know, as women. And
get back to place.
Oh, God. Anyway, but he did cause a few problems within the anti-apartheid movement because we put in... Shall I go on to this?
Yeah.
Okay. We put in an application for funding from the then ADAB to get 2 women. Did I talk about this before? No. To get 2 women from the ANC Women's League to come and do training here. And the reason why we did this is because every year for South Africa Women's Day, we'd have a seminar, we'd have a fundraiser, we'd have all sorts of things happening around the 9th of August. That was South Africa Women's Day, was on the 9th of August. So at one of then we'd get an ANC woman, the ANC office in Sydney. We got one of the women down who came down. She was working at Eddie's office in Sydney. And she gave a talk. And from what she said, because she suggested that we get some people over here to do some training. And we picked up on that. Mm. And then I can remember Lois Boswell, I don't know if you know Lois. Anyway, Lois and Wendy, my daughter, they sat down at, you know, we used to, in all the walks and all we used to protest marches and stuff, we would hand out leaflets, and we were very active, and just to let people know what was going on in the country. They sat down in the rain with under umbrellas, writing out, putting together the proposal for funding to get these 2 women to come over. And then the women stayed at my house, but there was this, you know, jealousy, you know, this stuff that was happening, and Algernon felt that we weren't consulting him. We formed a committee.
About women's things.
We formed a committee And there were men on the committee as well, and he used to come to the meetings. But remember National Action?
Oh, yes, I remember that. Yeah.
National Action was very active in that time.
Yeah.
This was in the 90s because they came over just before the inauguration. That's how I got invited to attend the inauguration. Anyway.
The inauguration of
Nelson Mandela.
Nelson Mandela, yeah.
So National Action apparently threw a brick through Edifundi's door window, whatever, and they also did the same to Algernon's thing. Then he said that he didn't think it was wise for the women to stay in my house because
Safety.
it was a safety issue. They refused to move but that's how we got our funding, because they were going to stay with me.
Yeah.
And, it was less expensive.
Yeah.
And, of course, in those times, National Action, I felt it was safe for them to stay in my house because the police were patrolling up and down my house all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Because of these women?
No.
Because of your actions?
I tell you, yes, because I tell you what happened once. This was with National Action. We found out now. That's right. We found out in the Prospect Council, National Action apparently. I don't know how we found this out, but anyway, apparently they wanted to hand out leaflets or do some rally on the steps of the Prospect Town, near Prospect Town Hall. And of course, because I'm a resident, I live a stone's throw from Prospect Town Hall, and then someone suggested Sally Mitchell. You know Jim Mitchell?
Yeah.
Yeah, his daughter.
Okay.
She was working with the Food Preservers Union at the time. Anyway, so she said she'll come with me and I talk to if I want to address the council, because I thought they've got to know why they mustn't have anything to do with these people. Yeah. Anyway, so I went and I spoke, and as Sally was there when I arrived, because I could just walk down. She says, the media will be here soon. She had got the media to come to the meeting. Oh, I got such a shock because, well, I thought that's fantastic, but I had to speak.
Yeah.
Anyway, I did. I told them who I was, why I'm here, why they should not be doing this. And I gave them a brief thing. It was splashed over the television that night because we were at a meeting, but we were trying to do work again so that we could do something about this National Action Group. We used to be holding up posters and stuff, and they walk right through and break our posters. That's what they used to do, They sprayed our cars. Jenny Burford, they slashed all 4 tires of her car because we used to have the Aboriginal sticker outside, the map of Australia with the red.
Yep.
Slashed all their tires. I didn't have my car there. I came with Jenny that night. If I had mine, that would have been. But I know they sprayed all our windows outside Peter Johnson's house. We had so much trouble with them. We actually had to give evidence before Irene Moss.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she met with all of us and we gave evidence. And then we all went to that big hearing. I think it was at the town hall or somewhere in the city. And he spoke. I've never...
Michael
Brandon. He spoke.
I heard him speak once. And he could say the most evil things.
Yes.
But say them beautifully.
That's right. Yeah.
Which was very scary.
It is.
He was through and through
bad. He was evil.
Yeah.
We decided to have a rally. What happened was I went and spoke about this thing. Then they wouldn't allow him something or other, but they could still be on the footpath. You can't tell people. You can't stop people on the footpath that they weren't allowed somewhere or other. After that, then we decided to have a rally. when they were going to be there, because we knew the dates, because it all came out in the meeting. That night, and for nights after that, every half an hour the phone would ring. Nobody speaks. It just rings again. Unfortunately, the phone was next to my bed. Just rang. I got a bit scared, I must admit, was there.
Can I ask you two things?
Yes.
One is, do you have any record, any of those cuttings from the paper, when the media came to the Prospect Council?
No. No. It was on the television.
Yeah.
I know it was on the television. Yeah.
And the other thing is, what happened when you and Sally and the media, and you spoke to them?
I didn't talk to them. They just recorded.
Was Michael Brandon there at that time?
No. I don't know if they actually made the decision there and then, but I know that they didn't allow something to happen.
So they were supportive of you?
Yes,
you said.
The day before the rally, I got all these calls, and Wendy said, "Mum, I don't think you are, but I don't want you to sleep there. You were alone in your house." So I went to sleep at Jenny Smith's. Jenny is, Leonie Ebert?
Yeah.
Her stepdaughter. So I went to sleep at Jenny then, but she lived close by. So she ran this bath and put the flowers in it. It made me feel so wonderful. And then the next morning I walked back home so that I could get dressed to go to this rally. The horses were already there. The horses and this police horses were already walking down Braun Road when I was coming down. Honestly, we had such a turnout for that rally. It was on one of in the park. I think it may have been Memorial Gardens. Yes, because the memorial thing went up after that, Clark thing.
So that's where the Human Rights Wall.
Yeah. I think that's where it was, because that's opposite diagonally opposite the council. Yeah. So we walked from there with our placards and everything, past them.
And this was an ANC...
No, this was still SACARE.
It was still SACARE.
Yes.
So it was everybody, like, from your group and from SACARE? Or
yes. It was. We were all still SACARE then. So they looked stupid. 6 of them. Yeah. Hundreds of us.
To put it in context.
That's right.
Yeah.
But that Michael Brandon, they were shocking. Yeah. Absolutely. And I don't know how they found out everything,
No, they had a real underground network, didn't they?
They had this amazing network. Yeah.
And that was also incredibly scary, because they were just like the person next door. They'd just get to know you, and they were just like...
That's right. But it was so funny when we were... Because Irene Moss was there, and she was questioning people at this big open meeting that we had. It was so funny, because there's this Asian woman questioning this man that's so racist.
Yeah.
Because it was definitely on the news. Because that's how they got to know about this council thing, Yeah. And then when we used to have fundraising functions, they also used to spray the walls outside. I remember we were at the Panem... And I didn't know that, because we always check inside. We keep the place clean so that we can get all our money back that we had to put down, the deposit you have to put down. Then we get this letter that there's graffiti outside the hall. I couldn't believe it. And I said, well, I didn't see, nobody told me that we have to walk outside. What have we got to do with the outside? Yeah. Then I rang the ombudsman, and they made them give us some money back.
Did they?
Yes. So they had to give us some money back, because I mean, anybody could have done it the next day. How do we know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh dear, all those days.
So do you think that they would have carried through any violence?
Oh yes. Oh, definitely. Well, they certainly were terrible. I don't know of them actually beating up. Anyway.
The two women that stayed in your house?
Yes. So when this happened, Algernon wanted them to leave. He came to a meeting and he said that they have to leave. And the women said no. He said, such a stupid man. He said the ANC, they have to do what the ANC tells them to do. These women are ANC members.
Oh, God.
But he was trying, what he was really should have said is they must do what the men say. They said they're not going.
So where was that in context of the rally? Was that before
Oh,
or
no.
after?
That was before.
Before
The women came over. The
Yeah.
women came over in the 90s, and this
Yeah.
must have been in the 80s.
Yeah. So was it successful having the women?
Oh, yes. Well, they saw lots of things around the place. They had training, trade union training in Victoria or some. They were Sydney,
Right, yeah.
they went to Melbourne. And, of course, they did a lot of stuff around Adelaide. Very successful. And we said that's absolutely fine. He can brief them talk about the ANC women, etc. And he wanted them to make a speech, and they just virtually got stepped off the plane. But anyway, they just said no. They are staying at my house. They feel very safe there. And when this happened, we always used to inform the police. I can't remember his name, but there was a particular person that was in charge of anything that had to do with the ANC or SAICare.
Was there?
Yes.
A policeman?
A policeman. So we rang him, and then we told him, I said that there are 2 women here, we've just had blah, 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 this happening. They were actually quite angry because he went to when he was interviewed by the media, he mentioned there were 2 women here, but he didn't say where they were staying. But police thought that was very stupid.
Well, it sounds, yeah.
Don't make that public, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, so was he approachable?
With Algernon?
No, the
Very
policeman.
much so. Because I said, the women are staying here, can you? And then every day they would drive and then make sure, because I was teaching still at the course at the time. And the women would be taken to the different, wherever they were going to have meetings. If it was during the weekend or so, then I would drive them, but otherwise someone else would always be driving them. We had a roster.
Right.
But
Well,
it was
that's
very
amazing
successful.
that they were that supportive. So
Very supportive. Very supportive.
was that because of the government at the time?
I think, no, this was the 80s. Was it when Don Dunstan was
Well,
in?
Don Dunstan was, he finished up in the
70s, isn't it?
In the 80s.
In the 80s,
Yeah.
that might have been. Because I can remember when we did because we had SAICare when we were ANC as well. Don Dunstan would come to any meeting. He would address any gathering, any rally, always that we had. And last minute, it didn't matter, because some of our events just happened on the spur of the moment.
Yeah, he was supportive as well.
Very supportive. But I can remember when we wanted to. There were 2, with sanctions, sports sanctions, which was the most. That had the most clout of all the sanctions. The sports sanctions were the best.
Yeah.
We wanted to hand out leaflets, but not outside. This was for tennis. This was the old tennis centre store. We wanted to be inside the gate, because if you're outside the gate, people, think that you're picketing, and that's not what ours was information. I remember it was Christmas Eve, when we had a meeting with the sports minister. Do you think I can remember his name? And he's on the phone to the curator of, anybody that was in charge there. And they let us put up a banner, and then we could hand out. It was terrible. I felt so embarrassed, because people thought we were handing out programs. It was... So would you like some information? So I didn't say it was a program, but you can't stop people. They want to get to their seats, so you just have to hand it out.